Captain Lena Graves kept her gaze locked on the towering Kryath diplomat standing before her in the crowded command room. Its reflective silver skin shimmered like liquid mercury under the lights, and its elongated, expressionless face conveyed a cold authority. It had come with a message from its leaders, one Lena could barely believe. "Your species will either surrender this planet or watch it fall to ruin," the Kryath emissary announced, its voice a low, resonant hum that seemed to fill every corner of the room. "We have neither time nor patience for resistance." Lena's fingers curled into a fist at her side. She glanced around the room, catching the tense expressions of her officers. Lieutenant Amir Patel shifted uncomfortably, his youthful face pale. Next to him, Dr. Tessa Wu, the base's chief scientist, held her jaw tight, her dark eyes revealing nothing but skepticism. Lena knew she had to speak carefully. Any sign of fear or doubt, and the alien envoy would seize on it as a weakness. She raised her chin and addressed the envoy in a calm, measured tone. "Earth is not a resource for your convenience. We've defended it before, and we'll do so again." The words were bold, but even as she spoke, a sliver of doubt crept in. The Kryath were unlike any threat humanity had faced before. They possessed advanced technologies that Earth's top scientists could only speculate about, and their fleet now loomed in low orbit, casting vast shadows over every major city. "Defend if you wish," the Kryath replied, voice unwavering. "You have 2 of your Earth days to decide, then we will proceed without mercy." With a final sweeping glance across the room, the alien turned and glided back toward its escort, leaving an uneasy silence in its wake. As soon as the envoy left, Lena turned to her team. "We don't have time to waste. Dr. Wu, I need a full assessment of our current defenses and any potential weaknesses the Kryath might exploit. Amir, gather the crew and prepare all operatives for combat readiness. I want every available ship and unit at full capacity within the next 24 hours. Dr. Wu's expression didn't change, but she gave a brief nod. "I'll pull up what we know about their tech. I can tell you now, though, our resources are limited. We're outmatched." "Then we'll be unpredictable," Lena replied, her tone sharper than she intended. "The Kryath think we're weak. Let's make that our strength." She could feel the tension settling over the team, but beneath it, a flicker of resolve kindled. This was no ordinary fight, and each of them understood the stakes. Lieutenant Patel shifted, then spoke up, his voice edged with determination. "Ma'am, what if we tried to lure them in, make it look like we're more vulnerable than we are? Maybe we can find a way to disrupt their command, even just briefly, and use the time to hit back hard." Lena gave him a brief, approving nod. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need, Patel. We'll have to be creative, use every ounce of strategy we have." Wu sighed, her skepticism softening as she met Lena's gaze. "I'll do what I can with the intel we have. Just don't expect miracles." "I don't need miracles," Lena replied, her voice steady. "Just a fighting chance." As her team dispersed to prepare for the coming storm, Lena stayed behind, watching the monitors flash with the silhouettes of Kryath ships hovering above Earth's atmosphere. The countdown had begun, and every decision she made would now determine humanity's fate. She could only hope that in 2 days' time, Earth would still belong to those willing to fight for it. The hum of the command center was punctuated by sharp bursts of conversation and the ceaseless clatter of consoles. Captain Lena Graves moved through the rows of screens and holographic displays, her face a mask of determination. She had summoned her crew's most innovative minds, hoping for ideas as bold as the plan they would need to execute. Dr. Tessa Wu was hunched over her console, eyes fixed on the alien ship schematics flashing on her screen. The Kryath warships orbited Earth like a tightening noose. Their fleet was precise, lethal, and perfectly aligned to crush any resistance humanity could muster. But Wu's focus was locked on a faint energy fluctuation she had detected within their shields. "Lena, look at this," she called, waving the captain over. Her tone was barely more than a whisper, as if speaking it too loudly might jinx the discovery. "See here? Their shielding tech, it's strong, but it cycles down slightly when they shift formation. It's small, milliseconds, but if we time it right. Lena's eyes narrowed as she studied the data. Milliseconds? It's not much, she murmured, but it might be enough. Do you think we could infiltrate their systems during one of these cycles? Wu tilted her head, calculating. If we send a pulse exactly when their shields phase down, we might breach their command matrix. It's risky, though. The timing has to be perfect, and if they detect us, we'll lose our chance. Lena's gaze sharpened with a fierce resolve. Then we don't give them that chance. Amir! She called, waving Lieutenant Patel over. He moved with purpose, his lean frame tense but ready. I need you to coordinate a diversion, something bold to draw their attention away from this point in their shield rotation. He didn't hesitate. A decoy. We can deploy the unmanned drone fleet we've been reserving for planetary defense. If they intercept even a few, it might give us the opening we need. Good, Lena replied. They'll have no idea it's a distraction. The three exchanged determined glances. In the span of a few hours, they had managed to build a potential path to resistance. Now, all that remained was execution. Later, as the team gathered in the briefing room, Lena addressed them. Her voice was steady but filled with an urgency that set nerves on edge. This is our one shot. The Kryoth don't expect us to fight back in a way they haven't seen. But that's our edge, our unpredictability. She turned to Wu and Patel. We launched the decoys at 0300 hours. Tessa, I want you ready to send the pulse the moment we see that shield flicker. Timing is everything. Patel nodded, his face a blend of anticipation and fear. If this works, we'll be able to deliver a hit they won't expect. A hush fell over the room as each team member absorbed the weight of the coming battle. Lena studied their faces, taking in their expressions of determination, fear, and the quiet bravery of those who knew what was at stake. As the meeting dispersed, Wu stopped Lena just before she left. If this fails, they'll retaliate, she said, her voice low. They'll know exactly where to strike next. Lena met her gaze, a fire blazing in her eyes. Then we make sure it doesn't fail. She turned and strode away, her footsteps echoing down the dim corridor. In the silence that followed, Tessa took a steadying breath, the cold edge of anxiety mixing with the fierce resolve of her own. She knew this would be a fight where victory would cost them dearly, but her belief in their mission kept her steady. At precisely 0300 hours, the countdown began. The stars outside the command ship flickered, indifferent to the human drama unfolding beneath them. Inside the war room, the steady hum of machinery was a constant reminder of the impending conflict. The crew had gathered, each person in their place, prepared for the risk that lay ahead. The strategy was set. Now, all they could do was execute. Lena Graves stood before the holographic map of the Kryoth fleet, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. The sleek, armored ships were an imposing sight on the projection. The alien invaders had been relentless in their pursuit, and now they were closing in. No more hiding. No more running. We launch in 5, Lena said, her voice low but firm. Stay sharp. We do this right, and we hit them where it hurts. Don't let up for a second. The tension in the room thickened. Even the most battle-hardened officers felt it. This was humanity's first real strike against the Kryoth, and if it failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. Lieutenant Amir Patel, ever the strategist, turned to Lena. You're sure the decoys will draw them off long enough? They have to, Lena replied, her gaze unyielding. It's our only shot. Tessa Wu, the ship's chief scientist, looked over from her console. Pulse is ready. Just waiting for the signal. Her voice held a quiet undercurrent of tension, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. Every detail of the plan had been executed to the letter. If they could breach the Kryoth shields, they would have a window to strike at their command systems. Lena took a deep breath and turned toward her team. This is it. We're not just doing this for survival. We're doing this to show them what happens when they underestimate us. With a single press of a button, the unmanned drones were launched into the vastness of space. Like a swarm of restless fireflies, they scattered across the void, drawing the Cryoth's attention with a burst of energy designed to mimic the signature of a full-scale assault. The alien fleet responded immediately, altering its formation to intercept the decoys. "No," Lena said, her voice cutting through the tension. "Send the pulse." Tessa's fingers flew across the console, and a soft beep signaled the transmission. For a split second, there was nothing. The universe felt suspended, as if holding its breath. Then, a brilliant flare erupted on the ship's radar. The Cryoth's shields, as predicted, flickered, vulnerable for a crucial moment. Amir's voice crackled through Lena's comms, filled with urgency. "They're shifting. We've got a breach, just barely, but it's enough." Without hesitation, Lena's eyes locked on the screen, her heart pounding. "Target their command hub," she ordered. "Take it down." In that moment, everything felt like it was happening in slow motion. The ship's weapons systems powered up, and the first salvo of concentrated energy was launched, cutting through the void like a streak of lightning. But just as the beam hit its mark, a sudden, deafening alarm blared through the ship. "Shields down," Tessa gasped, her hands flying over the console in panic. "The Cryoth are retaliating. They've detected our breach." A wave of dread swept over the room, but Lena's voice remained a steady force. "Hold steady. We're not done yet." The ship rocked as another Cryoth blast made contact. The hull groaned, but the crew didn't falter. They were human. They adapted. They fought. "Reroute power to the secondary shields," Lena barked, her mind racing. "Amir, get us into evasive maneuvers. Tessa, do not lose that pulse. Whatever happens, don't let them disable the signal." For a brief moment, as the crew scrambled, Lena felt the weight of the war crashing down on them. But in the same breath, there was something more: hope. They had cracked the Cryoth's defenses. The fight wasn't over, but humanity had just proven it could hold its own. The ship shuddered again, but Lena could hear it over the comms, her crew's voices steady, unbroken. And in that moment she knew the Cryoth had underestimated them. And they wouldn't make the same mistake again. "Brace for impact," Lena warned. "We fight until we win." The Cryoth retaliated faster than anyone had expected. The ship jolted violently, throwing Lena against the reinforced wall of the command deck. The lights flickered, but the ship's systems stayed online, holding together by sheer force of will. A chorus of alarms blared in the background, mixing with the frantic shouts of her crew. "Shields at 40%, Captain!" Tessa shouted, her fingers flying over the console. Sweat clung to her brow, but her focus was unwavering. "We've got incoming. They've adapted. We don't have time for that." Lena cut her off, staring at the distorted holographic map as the Cryoth fleet reformed. A wave of death headed their way. "They're targeting our engines," Amir added, his voice tight with urgency. "If we lose power, we're done." Lena took a deep breath, forcing the flood of panic to recede. "We hold them off. Amir, get us into position. Use the asteroids as cover. Tessa, reroute all available power to the shields and engines. We need both to stay functional." The crew moved swiftly. Amir's hands danced across the control panels, his eyes darting between the radar and the massive asteroid field that surrounded them. "This is going to be close. If they corner us—" "I know," Lena replied, her voice cool, though the pressure was mounting. "We can't let them get the upper hand." As the ship crept into the shadow of the massive asteroids, Lena's eyes never left the Cryoth fleet. They were relentless, a tidal wave of alien ships, their weaponry charged and primed. She could feel the heat of the battle even as her ship shuddered again from a near miss. "Energy pulse ready," Tessa said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "But the Cryoth are anticipating it. I'm not sure we can break through their shields again." Lena's jaw clenched. There had to be a way. Humanity had faced worse. They had always fought back, always found a way to survive, no matter the odds. "Give me a minute," Lena muttered, looking around the command deck, eyes scanning each officer, each face set in grim determination. She needed to be the one who held them together. "Listen up!" she barked, standing tall and steady. We're not giving them the satisfaction of breaking us. We may be outnumbered, but this is our home. And we're going to make them regret underestimating us. The crew exchanged tense glances, then nodded, an unspoken understanding passing between them. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future, for everything humanity had built. Engines are running hot, Captain, Amir said, his fingers tapping in rapid precision. I'm taking us closer. We're going to need every advantage we can get. Lena stood by, feeling the weight of her decision. The Kryath had underestimated humanity's resolve. It had taken everything they had to get this far, but Lena knew one thing for sure: they weren't going down without a fight. No, Lena ordered. Send the pulse. Hit them with everything we've got. Tessa's fingers hit the final key. The pulse, a concentrated wave of energy, shot out from the ship, aimed directly at the heart of the alien formation. The air hummed with a tense silence, broken only by the ship's groaning as it fought to stay intact under the strain. The moment the pulse struck, the Krya's shields flared, struggling to absorb the energy, but they buckled under the force. A cheer erupted from the crew as one of the Kryath command ships began to disintegrate, debris scattering across the vacuum of space. But there was no time to celebrate. Shields are at 20%, Captain! Tessa screamed. We can't take another hit like that. Then we make this one count, Lena said, her gaze hardening. Prepare for the final push. We end this now. Her crew moved with deadly precision. They had survived against the odds before. They could do it again. They had no choice. Lena gripped the control panel, her heart pounding in her chest. The final battle was upon them, and this time, there would be no retreat.